Thank you, Sandy, for that beautiful start to our service, as usual. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to an audience participation service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. Please join me in a responsive welcome with words by Amanda Schuber. I will read a phrase, pause, and probably indicate with my hand, and you respond with, as printed in your order of service, "We are glad you are here." Okay? We're ready? If this is your first time here, or your 101st time,
we are glad you are here.
If you carry the weight of a weary world on your shoulders, or you entered through the doors with a song in your heart and a skip in your step,
we are glad you are here.
If you are the loudest voice in the town square, or the subtle hand behind the scenes,
we are glad you are here.
If you had failed once, or 1,000 times, we are
glad you are here.
If you sing like the angels or mumble behind the hymnal,
we are glad you are here.
This community is what it is because of your presence. So welcome. Welcome into this space of love, support, justice, compassion, fellowship, and worship.
We are glad you are here.
Thank you. I am Donna Johnson, your service leader this morning. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones or any other noise-making devices. And on behalf of this fellowship, I extend a special welcome to any visitors we may have here today. It is our custom to ask visitors to introduce themselves. So if you are here for the first time or maybe haven't been here for a while, we ask that you stand at your place, tell us who you are, maybe where you're from, and perhaps what brought you here today. Anyone willing to stand and introduce themselves?
Hello, everyone. My name's Nathaniel.
I'm Lauren.
We're from Sturgeon Bay, and we just have been wanting to connect more with the community, so this is our first time here.
Welcome.
I'm Matt. I'm from Arlington Heights, and I was just driving by. I had an hour to kill, so. But I'm all about it, and I saw it, and I liked it, so I'm here.
Welcome.
I am Jim and Bonnie Wright. We're from Appleton. We've belonged to Appleton Union for many years. We are here on holiday, like some of you at least came years ago on holiday. And we're happy to be participating in the service.
Welcome.
Ron and Ellie, we're from Appleton. We just come up here for lunch and thought it'd be an opportunity to come check out service.
Welcome. We are glad you are all here. At this time, I direct you to the announcements that are on the back of your order of service. If there are any additional announcements that pertain to the fellowship, please share those now. Please wait for Anna to bring the mic to you so that we may hear your announcements and that those over the airwaves may hear you. Please identify yourself when you first start speaking. Any announcements?
Good morning, Cindy Nelson. A gentle reminder for those of you who signed up to bring something for our Thanksgiving food drive to have it here before next Saturday so that we can replenish if those people forgot. We will be packing the boxes on Sunday after service, and many hands make light work. And again, thank you for continuing to help our Door of Life just across the street. It just warms my heart every time I walk in here and see that I get to deliver more groceries over there. So thank you very much, and I'll see all you Packers next Sunday.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not in a good space here. Jane Wise. It's on the back of your service, but sometimes I don't even read the back of the service. So I want to just remind people this is the third Sunday and give you a little update. The Door County Housing Partnership has, I think, completed now their fourth house for people. The Climate Change Coalition of Door County has done a number of things, one of which a big thing was to coordinate with a local solar company that allowed people to get solar at a reduced rate. So that was a special thing. They also they're also keeping in touch with children, which I think is great, because they had a pumpkin smashing event. So you could bring your Halloween pumpkins and let the kids or whoever, and adults, smash them. But they pick up, corn cobs and all kinds of things from races in the county, and are really working hard. So, and the Children's Center is working at raising money. We gave them some last year, but they need an additional to redo their playground space, which was kind of obliterated by the renovations and additions that they made in the past 2 years. So thank you for remembering those three organizations. It's our outreach steering committee, and I'll talk to you again next month. So thank you.
Okay. Oh. Thank you. I'd like to invite Peggy up to light the chalice as I read these words from Ben Soul. We light this chalice, the symbol of our faith, knowing that this morning many others across this land and around the world are doing the same. For us and for our far-flung kin, it is a light of peace, justice, and of love. But without work, these aspirations flicker out as soon as the candle is extinguished. Let us all join together to accept the challenge of doing the hard work that makes these aspirations real. Thank you. Our opening words are by Reese Williams. Spirit of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture and the kinder conclusion, to love and let live, to embrace and forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to reach our better selves that we may love more and hate less, care more and reject less, that bound together by understanding we may sustain each other through trial and tribulation, through joy and happiness, through sickness and health. Let us to be joined in a common purpose of hope and fulfillment. Renew and revive us. We seek a common holy ground for one and all. Okay, please stand in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 1037, We Begin Again in Love. Please remain standing after for the unison affirmation printed in the order of service and the singing of the doxology. Carol Soper will now give us a bit of instruction and lead us in the singing of the hymn.
Okay, this is a hymn we don't do very often, probably because it requires some guidance. Okay, this is a two-part. This is why Donna was saying this was the audience participation Sunday. She will read a line that's above the notes, and then we will respond every time after she says something like that. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin in love. Sandy, could you just play the little part that we... Begin again in love. Okay? So, Donna's going to read.
Okay. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We give ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that set us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We give ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land by every tongue. At this time, you are invited to share any joys you may have so that we may celebrate with you, or if you have concerns that burden you, feel free to share so that we may offer solace and support. Please identify yourself when you share, and please wait for Anna to bring a microphone to you. But keep in mind that the service is being broadcast and will be on the internet, so please do not share any information about another person or persons unless you have their permission to do so.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Mona Simpson. I'm back in Door County doing my dog care retirement hobby. My joy is that I received telephone calls and many cards from people in the event that happened on August 10th when I broke my right leg. So far, I am 3 years in recovery and walking without a cane in the near future, contrary of my orthopedic doctor. However, I do not hope to be dancing on bars anytime soon. Did you ever? Oh, yeah.
For those of you who didn't catch that, somebody asked, "Did you ever?" And she go, "Oh, yeah."
I had the joy of being in Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra on Friday. Was it Friday? I guess so. Friday, when our conductor from the Peninsula Music Festival was the conductor of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. He did a masterful job, and it was just so wonderful to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Even in the darkness of sorrow, the light of joy can come through. Sharon Sweet, who lost her beloved husband, Phil, and one of our favorite pastors, asked me to share with you the results of the scholarship fund C to help with that choice was our own Bob Lindahl and Hank Well, if $10,000 is donated and WTC sets up a permanent endowment fund, the fund's $1,000 mark and more. The account has been named the Phil and Sharon Sweet Endowment Fund. Sharon says to you, to all of you, and this is to our fellowship, this is a tribute to Phil's love of learning and his exploration of life. Thank you for your generation. Thank you from Sharon. Yay.
Okay, we will now collect the offering. If you prefer, you can make a donation online from our website, uufdc.org. You will find the donate button on the far right of the home page. It's easy, safe, and a secure way to make your donation. Please give generously to support the wonderful work of this fellowship. I'm delighted to be the service leader today as we welcome back Garrett Bucks, who is the author of the popular newsletter, The White Pages. And he has published his first book, The Right Kind of White. Garrett is the founder of the Barn Raisers Project, which has trained nearly 1,000 participants to organize majority white communities for racial and social justice. He will be sharing his experiences and advice in a lunch and learn workshop immediately following the service entitled How to Change Someone Else's Mind and How Not to Change Someone Else's Mind, which I am sure will contain wisdom we all could use. And this workshop will take place instead of the usual talk back today, starting with lunch in the back room over there. The usual coffee time will still take place in the gathering room. And now please join in a moment of quiet.
Hey, you all. How's everyone doing today? I'm going to try.
Audience participation.
That was an honest answer. It was a quiet well. I hope I don't make it worse, right? That's my only hope as a speaker. You know, I've actually been looking forward to this for exactly 1 year, because I came here about a year ago. And since then, I have gotten to speak and lead workshops for all sorts of groups. But I have a very, very distinct memory of my last time with you all. And it's this memory that makes me so happy. Like, I smile immediately every time I think about it. And it has nothing to do with my speech. That was fine. But it was actually during Joys and Concerns. And I remember I came on December 8th last year, so not too long after the presidential election, right? And already there had been all sorts of announcements. You know, this was not the first. Oh no, yeah, there had been already multiple things said about announcements having to do with indivisible groups and different organizing, and I could tell, this place is full of people who are doing all sorts of things in the community, and especially seemed really active in the indivisible group, which sounded at that point actually had some pretty good election results from what they had done here locally. And so I'd heard all that. And then someone got up and said, I was reading the Washington Post this morning, and they had a piece of advice they had a list of top 10 things to do if you were disappointed by the presidential election results. And on that top 10 list, she was pleased to report, one of them was join an indivisible group, and another one was start attending a Unitarian fellowship. And what happened, not dissimilar from what just happened right there was this kind of burst of joy in the audience as folks recognized, I assume, all right, we must be doing something right then, and we're doing it together. And I think about that spontaneous burst of joy, this reminder of a community saying, keep going. What you're doing and how you're showing up, both on the days when it feels like enough, and especially on the days when it doesn't, matter a whole lot. And that's actually a big piece of what I'm going to be talking about this morning. I, like a lot of us, am in a constant battle when I just watch the news or exist in the world, or in my case, try to raise a couple kids in a world that I hope is more caring and more loving than the one I grew up in. It's a constant battle between despair and hope, between days when it feels really, really easy to say, you know what we're doing is enough, and days when it feels miles away from enough. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things that I've learned no longer give me hope, or are not sustainable sources of hope. I followed politics quite a bit, have candidates I like, candidates I don't like, and I used to follow polls and say, well, polls, candidates I like are doing well in polls, and candidates I don't like are doing poorly. Well, that can be a sign of hope. And sometimes even elections themselves will give a sign of hope, right? Oh, phew, that one turned out the way I wanted to, or that one didn't. But over time I've realized whatever feeling that isn't quite hope for me. I don't know if anyone here's a sports fan, but it's not dissimilar from when you check scores on one of the apps these days. Check how the Packers are doing, or the Bucks are doing, or the Brewers are doing in the middle of a game. They'll tell you now. I don't know how they do this or what it means, but they'll often tell you a probability that, the Packers currently have a 67% chance of winning this game, right? And that doesn't fill me with any hope at all. And I realize, first off, the number feels made up. It goes up and down and all that, and just like the polls do. But I realize that why it really feels empty is because I can't do anything about that number. I don't have any access to building it. I'm definitely not going to be asked by the team. They're not going to call me up and say, Garrett, we need a 44-year-old man with questionable muscular dexterity. There's nothing I can do about that, right? Whereas for me, hope, when I actually feel hope, it only comes because I've been part of building something, and I've been connected to people who are building something. And there's a story I think a lot, and I've thought about a lot in this past year when I think about hope, and it's actually a story not about politics, but about psychology. A group of psychologists, I believe at Stanford, in the 1960s, early 1960s, had this idea for this experiment. And they went out to a suburban Palo Alto neighborhood, a place where people take a lot of pride in their yards. And they went out with a kind of like little display they've got so that people could be really, really clear on their request. They pretended to be the researchers from a traffic safety nonprofit. And you know, generally, theoretically, they didn't find anyone who was anti-traffic safety in the neighborhood. But their specific ask was pretty audacious. They said, basically, we've got this huge sign. It takes up literally your entire lawn. It's a billboard-sized sign. And the researchers, in explaining their methodology, actually made a point to say, we made the sign as ugly as possible. Like, we did a really, really bad job on the lettering. And the sign was saying, like, essentially, like, you know, slow down for safety, right? It was a traffic safety sign. So they went around to a bunch of houses and asked them, we're going to be coming around in a few weeks with this sign. Would you be willing to put it up in your yard? Not surprisingly, well, I am fascinated that 14% of people said yes, absolutely. So I would not have. I don't have the best yard, but I take a little more pride in it than that. But 14% said yes, but that's a very, very low number. Right? And not because they were opposed to traffic safety. So then the researchers came around, and that was a random group of houses they picked. They then go to another random group of houses in the same set of blocks. This time, though, they've got a two-pronged strategy. They come around one week and say, hey, we got these little stickers for your window that say, slow down for traffic safety. Would you be willing to take one and put it and display it in your front window? And that response to that, overwhelming, right? About 80% of folks said, absolutely, happy to do it, and they did. But this is where it gets real interesting. Because you're like, Garrett, this experiment was, are people more willing to have a sticker in their window than a big dumb sign? Like, that's obvious. But the real interesting part happened, they came back to the sticker folks a couple weeks later and said, thank you again so much for the sticker. And remember, this had not been a group that had been previously approached by about the big dumb sign. And they said, now that you got the sticker up, would you be willing to put this big sign in your yard? Same size, same terrible lettering, equally ugly. 76% of the people who would put the sticker up in their window said absolutely. Be happy to do it. But the most interesting part was why they said yes. Because researchers said, wow, thank you. Why were you so motivated? And they said, well, I mean, it's obvious. I identify as a traffic safety activist. The first step kept them in motion, made them not just be people who took an action, but people who thought of themselves as people who take action. Not just as people who have a belief, but people who part of their identity is holding and acting on that belief. And I think about that study quite a bit when I think about our state, actually. I'm fascinated by the history of this place. Wisconsin, maybe I'm biased because I live here too, I think it's one of the most, if you look at the history of Wisconsin, boy, it's up there with some of the most interesting histories of any place anywhere. And in particular, a lot of historians of Wisconsin have this puzzle of why was it that from about the middle of the 1800s all the way to the first half of the 20th century, why was it that this place was just on fire with so many big, bold ideas for making the world a better place? This was the site of the first kindergarten in America, was founded in Wisconsin. The abolition movement, one could argue, was strongest in the state, and of course the founding of the Republican Party up in Ripon was a project of the abolitionist movement here. It was the state that, in my town, in Milwaukee, it was known for electing the sewer socialist mayors for decades, right? That were beloved for being able to chart new courses for what a city could do, not ideologically, but just providing really, really good government for its citizens. It was the birthplace of the Wisconsin idea, and the idea of a public university that didn't just sit in one place like an ivory tower, but truly served the rest of the state and would be a laboratory of ideas. right? It was the birthplace of the conservation movement. It was the birthplace where progressives in state government experimented with a lot of the ideas, the progressive income tax, an old age pension fund, et cetera, that eventually became the backbone of the New Deal. This was a place where, by no means am I saying that things no longer happen here or big ideas don't happen here, but that's a whole lot of bodies in motion for about 100 years in this place. And the puzzle is, what changed, right? Now we're thought of as a state that, goes tons of different directions politically, but rarely a state that the rest of the country always looks for, says that's where the biggest, boldest idea is going to come from. And personally, as a Wisconsin, I got to take a little gumption at that. I'd like to be that state again. Not just for the sake of my ego, but because, once again, I'm raising kids here. And I like the idea of my kids growing up in a place that sets the course for the rest of the country, and perhaps even the rest of the world, in how much it cares and how much it loves. And so the mystery of why was that, right? And why, if you want to get really, really depressed, why is that no longer the case, is often, I think, answered unsatisfactorily. There's been books written about it, books like The Fall of Wisconsin and things like that, but they often just say, well, big money came into politics and there's a different media environment. And all that, again, it's kind of like watching that Packers probability score for me. Like, that feels like distant forces that I can't do anything about. But so instead, as I got interested in this question, I went back and got real curious about, well, were those just a miraculous set of people who were bringing those big ideas to Wisconsin? Were they somehow superhuman in a way that we aren't? And what I discovered, and perhaps others of you already know this history, the root of it, by no means the people who did everything, especially over a 100-year period, but one of the core roots of a lot of those big ideas and a lot of those big experiments did come from a group of about 2,000 people or so, not a massive group. And it was a group called the 48ers. 48ers got that name because they were kicked out of Germany in 1848. And they were kicked out of Germany because, well, pretty clear reason why they did. They tried to rebel against the various archdukes and things like that, and they failed. So that's a good way to get kicked out if you want, right? And it was a heady summer of rebellion all across Europe, but in particular in Germany. And big dreams that were going to unite Germany. It was going to be a progressive Germany. It's going to be a lot of it had a dream of a proto-socialist state. But what's interesting is a lot of the people who participated in those rebellions, who literally did something as dramatic as manning a physical barricade, had not been active politically just a few months before. But they saw something happen. They were called into action, and they tried to take action. And if you end that story in Germany in 1848, that's tragedy. Because those people failed, they were exiled to the United States. But the story didn't end. Those folks who just a few months previously had not been that political, who would have been forgiven for just accepting hopelessness and saying we tried and failed, they were now on fire. And they were on fire because they had been bodies set in motion. They had been people given something to do and given an invitation to do something. And so that first kindergarten in the United States was founded by a 48er. A network of social clubs, athletic clubs for workers, things like that, in particular throughout my city, but throughout the entire state, were founded by those 48ers. The political movements that eventually became the sewer socialists in Milwaukee and the progressives across the entire state were either directly founded by or founded by direct descendants of the 48ers. The abolitionists who freed fugitive slaves across the state and who literally founded the political party that brought about the end of slavery in this country, you guessed it, were 48ers. They were not remarkable people, although they did remarkable things. They were bodies in motion. They were not unlike that random group of homeowners who would have rejected, we know, because their peers did, would have rejected the big dumb sign had they not been given a first invitation to do something smaller. And so when I think about this moment, and when I think about the questions of this political moment, I think it's unhelpful to ask big self-aggrandizing questions. Like, how do I stop everything I dislike in the world? Does my little finger in the dike keep the flood from coming? That's too big of a question for me. But here's a question that matters a bunch. Not just if I ask it, but if we all ask it. For the issues I care about the most, for the dreams I have for my community that are not yet true, even if the action I start with, and definitely even if the action I invite others to take with me, feels very, very tiny, how do I make myself a body in motion? And how do I invite others to be in motion too? And so I'm feeling an awful lot of hope right now during times politically that also have a lot of reasons for despair. The reason why I feel an awful lot of hope is not because there's not a need for action. Unfortunately, there's far too much need for action for those of us who dream of a world that's made whole, a world of care rather than a world of division and a world where we don't take care of each other. I wish we didn't have to have millions of us across the country on a dime stop and try to band together to shore up our food banks locally because we were worried that too many of our neighbors didn't have enough food. But I'm given hope, not just by the initial charitable impact, but I'm given hope by the number of bodies in motion who in the last month have donated to food banks not just because they felt it was the charitable thing to do, not just because they felt sorry for somebody, but because they had a sense of this is what being a neighbor is you commit to feeding everybody. I wish that my friends and neighbors in Chicago right now didn't have to fear so much those neighbors who come from other countries, those neighbors who don't have the same papers as I do. I wish that there wasn't a real war being waged by my government on residents of that beautiful city. But I'm given hope by the fact that I know and have gotten to personally work with dozens of moms and grandpas and teachers and community members who a few months ago weren't connected to their immigrant neighbors, but now wake up every morning, gather a group of kids in their neighborhood, and help walk them to school. Who, on a dime, when the call comes out, come out with their whistles, come out with their cameras, and make sure that if their neighbors are being targeted, that they're helping out. That have descended en masse on neighborhoods where business owners have seen extreme declines in their business because people are afraid to go out and shop, and made sure they take care of those businesses. Is that enough? Oh, it's not enough. If any of our communities are being terrorized, if any of our neighbors don't feel safe, of course it's not enough yet. But the question is, are there more bodies in motion than there were a month ago, than there were 3 months ago, and there were a year ago when last I got to be with you? And the answer to that question is what gives me hope. So I think a lot about this fellowship and the time I spent with you all last year. Because it wasn't the words that were said. It wasn't the direct report on the Washington Post affirmed what we're already doing. It was the collective joy that came from that reminder. As people looked around the room and were able to connect, you know what? Person down the row is doing something big in our community, and I appreciate it. I canvass with them, I organize with them, I raise money with them. And it doesn't feel like enough, but we're doing it together. And now that the ball's rolling, none of us have any plans to stop. It's a blessing, again, to be with you all. Thank you.
Please join in body or spirit for the singing of hymn number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.
Days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our hunger and fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you for that rousing rendition. We close today with words by Deborah Hafner. As we enter another week of uncertainty in the world, let us remember that there is only one side, that of humanity and planet Earth. May we pray for peace. May we raise our voices with our elected officials and engage as we can in acts of resistance. And may we remember to take very good care of ourselves and each other and those we love. May we remember these words adapted from the Unity Prayer. The light of love surrounds us. Love enfolds us. The power of love protects us. Love watches over us. Wherever we are, love is. Again, I invite Peggy to join me to extinguish the chalice as I read words from Craig Rowland. As we extinguish this chalice flame, may the warmth of its light remain within us, guiding our steps and our hearts. Let us carry forward the strength of this community, the courage to speak truth, and the hope that transformation is possible. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. Go in peace with the light of this gathering to illuminate your way. Blessed be, may it be so.